What's up, Ben?
Hello,
How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Awesome, awesome. Is your video working?
It's working, but I don't see my face.
Huh, I don't either.
Hmm.
Over to the left, you should have a stop start button next to the mute button.
I frequently do, but all I see is the mute button right now.
Huh. You could maybe log out and log back in, maybe?
I'll do that. See you in a minute.
All right. About now, Ben.
As I have rejoined, and now I think I'm going to be live.
All right.
It says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Huh. Let me check real quick. Because the host has stopped it. Let's see. I don't even see you. Huh. Let's see here.
Yeah, I don't see me either. I see a square with Ben Gay in it.
Uh, oh, yeah, I see there. All right. How about I make you a host and see how that works?
Maybe that would help.
Hey folks, Brett Hudson here, coming to you live from beautiful South Florida. And today you're in for a real treat. We've got there he is, the infamous last protege of Napoleon Hill. Can you believe it? The last protege. And you know, I know, Ben, you kind of wanted me to, you asked me if I wanted your picture and kind of do some promotion out there. And I was like, no, I like the fact that everybody loves curiosity, right? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I don't like curiosity, but I understand what you're saying.
And so I was the last protege of Napoleon Hill, because a lot of the people that follow me and you know, obviously I'm a practitioner of Napoleon Hill. So a lot of my connections resonate with Napoleon Hill. And lo and behold, we didn't realize that there was a protege out there that actually got to be mentored by the infamous Napoleon Hill. And so for those of you, before I introduce Ben, who is the legend, the myth, the the man behind the Protege, the last Protege of Napoleon Hill. Before we start, kind of want to set the table here. Again, my name is Brett Hudson, coming to you live from beautiful South Florida. And today, I wanted to bring out a gentleman that, we connected on LinkedIn, and, going through his profile, I found him very interesting. Matter of fact, I found out that, he also was a practitioner of Napoleon Hill. And so, like minds think alike. And so he does a lot of commenting on my posts and vice versa. And I was like, wow, wouldn't it be cool to do an interview with this gentleman and bring him on out and maybe get some questions from my followers. And I have some great questions for you today. But get these questions and just ask the gentleman who actually spent 2 years with Napoleon Hill under his tutelage. And wow, I have a lot of questions too. I just can't imagine what it was like to be able to, walk side by side with Mr. Hill himself. So without further ado, this is Mr. Ben Gay III. I don't want to steal your thunder, but go ahead and just let our folks know a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into the questions and answers here.
Been in selling my whole life, raised in a family of salespeople and business entrepreneurs, so I didn't really know any better. I'm always being asked, when did you decide to be a salesman? I really didn't know there were any options. I thought that's what you did when you grew up. So my first sales contest that I won, I was 10 years old. I was selling Krispy Kreme donuts door-to-door, fundraiser. And my father taught me a little script, and lo and behold, I won a citywide contest in Atlanta, Georgia, and won a bright red Columbia bicycle. So if I had any doubts about going into selling, they were quickly wiped out. Then I owned a lawn mowing business when I started at 14. I didn't like physical labor, and I didn't like the hot Atlanta sun, so my father taught me an idea, which was hire my friends to do it, me go sell the jobs, inspect and collect the money, and then split the money with them. And I said, but Dad, why would they work for half the money? He said, oh, no, they'll make the same or more, because you're going to tell the people to pay you what they think the job is worth when it's done. You don't ask for any money. I promise you they will pay you at least 2 times, sometimes far more than that than you would have dared ask for. So in the growing season in Atlanta, I frequently had 20, 25 kids working for me, and I got half of their earnings. They got half of mine, and we did rather well. Then a few jobs, worked at Macy's. It was called Davison's at that time in Atlanta. Was their top salesman, youngest buyer in their then 100-year history. I was running a department, signing orders when I wasn't legally old enough to sign an order. Then I became a manufacturer's rep, traveled the Southeast United States, and I got married somewhere in there. And on $100 a week, adjusted for inflation, almost $1,000 a week now, but it was not a whole lot of money. I was putting my wife through nursing school and quickly running out of money. By then I was working for my father in the food brokerage business as a salesman. And I got out the Atlanta Journal-Constitution on September 15th, 1965, and looked through the want ads to see what I could do to make more money. And I got all the way out to, I think, psychologist or something before I ran out of letters, and I didn't qualify for anything, literally nothing. And then as I was about to throw down the newspaper in disgust, I saw the next section. It said business opportunities. And the first ad in that section said, if you know anything about marketing plans and want to make more money, call this number. Well, I didn't know what a marketing plan was, but I certainly wanted to make more money. So I stepped into a phone booth, dialed the number. A gentleman named Bill Dempsey, who became a big deal in my life, answered the phone. I began questioning him because, of course, he would have to qualify to hire me. And after 3 or 4 minutes of me questioning him, he said, Mr. Gay, let me stop you. I'm not the man standing in a phone booth answering want ads. For some of your younger viewers, they may not know what a phone booth is, and they certainly may not know what it sounded like, but it always sounded like you were calling from inside a trash can. So it was obvious where I was. He said, where are you? And I said, well, I'm on Peachtree Street in Atlanta. He said, what number? And I told him. He said, you're only about 2 blocks from my office. Be standing in front of my desk in 10 minutes or never dial this number again. And he slammed down the phone. Right then, my high school running buddy and co-worker for my father came around to pick me up. I jumped in the car like Robin into the Batmobile, and I said, quick, 1447 West Peachtree Street. He said, why? And I said, we're going to be rich. I figured anybody who would pay to run an ad and then hang up on the applicants must have something going. Skidded in front of his receptionist's desk with about 60 seconds to spare in the 10 minutes I was given, introduced myself. I heard a little chuckling behind me. I turned around and I said, hi, the chuckling was he heard my name. So I turned around, extended my hand. I said, hi, I'm Ben Gay. What's your name? He said, Zig Ziglar. And I said, with a name like Zig Ziglar, you're laughing at Ben Gay? You got to be kidding me. I'd never heard of Zig. He had not yet had a big score. He was selling cookware in Columbia, South Carolina, and had answered the same ad that I answered. I'm guessing 250,000 or more copies of that newspaper went out. So 250,000 people could have read it. 2 of us read his ad and responded. So that was a big day for him, as it turned out. He got Zig and me all at one time. I didn't look like a big victory at the time, but we started out together. 6 months went by. I didn't earn a penny. Not a penny changed hands because I didn't learn the scripts they gave me. And one day I walked into the meeting at the Georgian Terrace Hotel, and he said, Mr. Gay, how are you? And I said, hi, Mr. Dempsey, how are you? And he said, I don't want you coming to the meetings anymore. Well, Jimmy and I had about by then $5,000 sunk into the business to get to the highest level. That's about $50,000 in today's money. We couldn't afford not to come to the meetings. That's when the money was made. So long story somewhat shorter, I said, what do I have to do? He said, well, you have to learn the scripts I gave you on the first day I met you. I said, you never bring anybody to the meetings because you haven't learned the recruiting script. When you get here, I'm sure not going to let you do the meeting from the front of the room. I know you've never learned that. And then when the meeting's over and it says, turn to the person who brought you here and ask how they can get started or how you can get started in Holiday Magic, you don't know what to do there either. But it's worse than that. He said, people see you here night after night after night, and they assume you're doing well. So when they can't close their people, they raise their hand. That was a little system we had. And the nearest senior person goes over and help them. He said, God forbid that it's you that goes over and help them because you don't know that script. So you not only didn't bring anybody, you blow off their prospects. So I don't want you coming to the meetings. Frankly, you're a bit depressing. I'd never heard depressing and Ben Gay in the same sentence in my life, not with my father, not with me, not with anyone. So I said, what do I got to do? He said, you got to go learn those scripts. He said, do you still have them? I said, yeah, I've got them in my paperwork. He said, go learn them. When you can stand in front of my desk and give me the recruiting script, the 47-minute word for word opportunity meeting, and the 6 closing scripts, word for word, without notes, then you can come back to the meeting. I'm guessing it was a week or 10 days later. I did that. He said to me, now go say that recruiting script to some people. I did. And that night or the next night, maybe, we walked into the Georgian Terrace Hotel with 5 prospects, 5 buying units. Buying unit, husband, wife is one. Somebody by themselves is another one. And much to my surprise, people were sort of shocked when I walked in with other people. I didn't do the meeting from the front of the room. He wasn't stupid enough to trust me with that yet. But when it said, turn to the person who brought you, I whipped out my legal pad and I went through as many of the 6 closes as was necessary to close them. And I got 5 out of 5. One guy, as best I recall, had to go make some financial arrangements. The other turned over checks that night. And in that moment, plus the next step, which they would figure out in a week or 10 days they had to take, I made more money in that hour and a half than I had made in any year in my life. And so I went from $100 a week to about $40,000 a month, adjusted for inflation. That's $400,000 a month, simply because I was with a good company and I'd learned the scripts. Also of some importance, Bill Dempsey, when he recruited me that first night, said, "You're young and inexperienced. I'm going to give you two things that might help you." And he handed me an old, turned out to be scratched up record by Earl Nightingale called The Strangest Secret. And he gave me a beat up old copy of Think and Grow Rich. He said, "Study these two things." So I did, at first with the enthusiasm I had shown towards learning the scripts, but eventually I realized the people there were talking in a language I didn't understand. They were quoting out of Think and Grow Rich and so on. So I read them. And then a year-long sales contest started in the company. And at the end of the year, much to my surprise, I had first prize. First prize, it turned out, was a mystery prize. Second prize was a Rolls Royce. Zig won that. Third was a Lincoln Continental. Fourth, I think, was a Thunderbird. And then it went all the way down to steak knives. They flew me to California. I'd met him before in some seminars, William Penpatrick, the owner of the company. And I said, "So what's the mystery prize?" He said, "Well, you're going to be president of the company." And I said, "What?" I was 25 years old. High school education barely lasted in college 3 weeks. So I said, "Really?" I said, "Why was it a mystery prize?" He said, "Because if I didn't like who won it, I would have changed the prize. Another Rolls Royce, Stutz Bearcat or something." But he said, "I've worked with you before. I think you've got great promise. You're going to be president of the company." And so that was the day I began to be able to say, people say, "You knew Zig Ziglar?" I was able to say, hopefully within earshot of him, I'd love to say that, "Yes, he worked for me." So Zig was 18 years older and far more experienced and already a great speaker. So it was just fun to needle him a little bit. One more quick story, and I'll end this long answer to your short question. One night sitting in my house in Marin County, this is now 1967, early 68, Earl Nightingale is sitting there. He was a weekend guest, and Dr. Hill is sitting there, a weekend guest. And I think J. Douglas Edwards was with us too. I don't recall. There was sort of an ever-changing cast of characters. I told him the story I just told you about Bill Dempsey giving me the record in the book. And one of them, I don't recall which one of them said, "Well, did it help?" And I said, "Well, look around." We were sitting in one of the biggest houses in Marin County, California, the first or second richest county in the United States, on top of a hill surrounded by 156 acres of pasture, looking down on the San Francisco Bay and the skyline and the bridges and everything. And I said, "Well, look around you guys." "Yeah, I think it helped." And they smiled, and I said, "And you both work for me." And they burst out laughing. They said, "Well, I guess it did work." So I think you originally asked, how did I get started? That's the answer. And from that night on, or that time on, different companies, different names, etc. That's what I've been doing. I coach, I consult, I do sales training, I give speeches, and hopefully motivate some people to turn their lives around. And I've got a few success stories.
What a great story. I took some really good notes here, and I like how it all like evolved. As a kid, you had, in Atlanta, you had these 25 kids working for you, right? So you understood what it meant to leverage, right? What it meant to have leveraged income versus a linear income, which is a fixed income. So right out the gate, you already understood leverage, and then married, making $100 a week and trying to put your wife through nursing school must have been a grind.
It was, and I was hoping she'd get out of nursing school and get a job as a nurse. We needed the money.
So how long did it take you to go from that $100 a week to $40,000 a month? I mean, like, wow.
Well, the first 6 months were totally wasted. That's when no money changed hands. By the end of the 12th month, 6 months after I got serious, I'd hit the $40,000 a month level. And rather quickly, I hit the $10,000 a month level, which even today can make a difference in a person's life. Back then, that was $100,000 a month. So rather quickly, 10, probably took 6 months to get to the 40, and another 6 months to win the contest, and another 2 or 3 months to be president of the company.
Well, I want our listeners, our viewers, to really understand it. It's not luck. It's not called luck. What it was, you know, you took action, right? And I'm sure you applied the self-confidence formula, like, you know, you had the end in mind. And I'm sure you practiced the laws of success in your business, and you attracted what you put out, which was, you know, I think it's Jim Rohn that said success, success isn't something that you do, it's something you become. And as you become better, you start attracting more. And you mentioned Zig Ziglar. Wow, he's one of my favorite people that I used to follow. I didn't have an opportunity to be mentored by him, but I did see him speak a couple times. And one of the things I really liked about him is he used to get down on that one knee and look at his audience and say, "I believe in you," right? "I believe in you." He would speak into you, and you would believe it. Zig said, "He believes in me. I can do this," right?
If there were 1,000 people in the room when Zig taught, you believe you were the only one, and he was talking to you, even if you were in the back row.
Yeah, amazing. So, but back to Napoleon Hill. So I'm curious. So let me bring up some of the questions. So for some of the people that might not know, the laws of success were written in, I believe, 1925, before the Depression, and then Think and Grow Rich came out, I believe, in 1935, and really
37, I think, but you're
37,
probably, you're probably right.
Yep, 37. That's right. And so, to me, it was a book that was recommended to me years and years ago. I just started really becoming a practitioner of Napoleon Hill in the last 6-7 years. Matter of fact, I belong to a mindset group. We read from his books every day, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. And then we have a mindset mastermind, right? A mastermind group that we kind of discuss what we read. And I can tell you the last 6 years, when you're able to develop a prosperity consciousness, change your mindset, change your life, right?
Absolutely. Dr. Hill used to talk about atmosphere, that change the atmosphere around you, the situation, either get in a good one or create a good one. He said to me one day, it was a high compliment, that we were sitting in my office at Holiday Magic in San Rafael, California. And I don't know how it came up, but somebody said something about succeeding and so on. And Dr. Hill said, the environment is really the word I was looking for. Dr. Hill said, with the success environment you guys have here, it would be sort of hard to fail. 150 people in the home office of that one company. We had 5 similar companies, same marketing plan around town, but 150 people in that one building. And I can't tell you, Brett, of a single soul that was negative. Some were paid to be negative. The attorney, Dorothy von Berligen, we paid her to be negative, and she more than earned her money. But everybody in there was excited. The janitor was excited. The head of the mail room, Harold Combs, was excited. The vice president in charge of everybody. Bill Patrick, I was at one end of the building. William Penn Patrick was at the other end of the building. And everybody in between and upstairs was revved all the time. It was just exciting to walk into the building in the morning. And that compliment was, it'd be sort of hard to fail here.
I love that. I love that you just said that, because it reminds me again of Zig Ziglar saying, failure is not who you are, it's an event, right? And then Les Brown says, the ground is no place for a champion. So I have a couple of questions from our viewers, and one of them is, he's saying, of course, people aren't perfect and successful. He's saying, of course, people aren't perfect, and successful people can be attacked for their imperfections. Some hit pieces exist. Some people attack Napoleon Hill and his character. As someone who knew him personally, what can you say about his character?
Never saw a crack in it. I know that he told me things that revealed, personal stuff, marriages, disenfranchisement from his children, some of his children, and so on. But he told me about those. He was very open because he was trying to help me. He would, a lot of the advice he gave me, he said, "Ben, don't do what I did." One day, let me give you a quick example. One day I was sitting there doing something, and we just come out of a meeting, and buzz and fast, rapid fire, and doors opening and closing. It was like being inside a cement mixer there sometimes. And he said, when do you fit? And he'd stayed at the house, and when he was in town, he always stayed there. He had his own room, and we called it the Dr. Hill room. But he said, how do you take care of family? I said, don't worry about it, doctor. I've got them handled. I put family into the nooks and crannies. And he said, we found the problem. And I said, what's that? He said, get your calendar out. And the brand has changed over the years, but I still have a calendar very similar to the one he made me get within a day or two of meeting him. He said, get your calendar out and then flip forward. Where do you like to go for holidays and so on? I said, we like to go over to the coast, Mendocino, the Northern California coast. He said, we like to go over there. He said, great. He said, I don't think you could sit around for 2 weeks anywhere, could you? And I said, no, I know I can't do that. He said, well, let's pick out 4 long weekends spread out over the next 12 months, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because you can get to the coast in about an hour and a half from that office. And I said, okay. And he said, block them out. He said, now those days, those 4 weekends are sacrosanct. And I also want you to pick out one night a week. You're always out eating, and your wife is almost all, I'm saying my wife instead of Gigi because it was a different wife at the time. Marcia has since passed away. We said, you and your wife are always out eating. You go to all the fine restaurants, but you're always accompanied by 15 or 20 people who are kissing your ring and bowing down and laughing at everything you say. I want you to have one night a week with just your wife, nobody else. And I said, okay. So what night's probably best for you? I said, well, I'm in and out of town. He said, okay, how about this? The first night you're back in town from any trip. Well, that didn't give me a date, but it gave me a system. And so we started doing that. His point was, and he went on to say, your personal life comes first. You put the business into the nooks and crannies. And I said, well, I'm awful busy. He said, work expands to fit the time allowed, right? And I said, right. And he said, it also contracts to fit the time allowed. Skipping ahead to a different day and subject, but it just reminded me of that. I was talking about one day that when I was in town, I'd really like a little more time off, but from early in the morning to late at night and so on. And he said, take Wednesdays off. And I said, what? I said, take Wednesdays off. You don't come in on Wednesdays. You don't take calls. You're done on Wednesdays. And I said, well, how's that going to work? He said, you will be amazed that you'll get everything done in 4 days that you would have gotten done in 5 days. He said, I promise you, the work contracts or expands to fit the time allowed. Allow it 4 days. And so I did. And I did that for a long time. Now my life is a little different in that every day is sort of a half holiday type thing because I work when I want, where I want, how I want. And the cell phone, of course, has given me more freedom than we used to have. I don't have to go back to the office and sit down to have the phone ring. So
that's another word you just tapped on, freedom. So, so on our Think and Grow Rich mastermind call, freedom means a lot of different things for a lot of different people, right? Yeah. And so my good friend Paul Hutchings, who, he's been doing this call for, I don't know, probably over a decade now, right? I've only been plugged in about 6-7 years now, but holy cow, I mean, the guy is a servant leader out there, and I just want to give him some props, but he has another question I want to drop on. He said, did you ever have conversations with Napoleon Hill concerning the spiritual side of life? And if so, is there anything memorable that you could share?
Yes, he admitted to me that he had drifted away. And when you say spiritual, I sort of go spiritual / religious, but whatever. He had drifted away from formal religion. And although I think it would be fair to say he was a spiritual person, but what he told me was that he drove himself back to religion when he he didn't create, but when he popularized masterminds, he may have coined the term, but the theory's been around that Christ did that with 12 guys also. But he said, when I saw the power of the mastermind group, and that I could literally, in any given situation, create another human being, another mind, by gathering together a mastermind group. He said, golly, if I can create another person or persons, what could God do?
Right.
And he began coming back. By the time I met him, he wasn't Bible pounding, but he acknowledged that much of what he taught you can find in the Bible. I'm not a great biblical student, but I got Think and Grow Rich right here to my left and the Living Bible right here to my right. And there's very few things in Think and Grow Rich I couldn't find a source reference in the Bible for. So he
Wow.
came back. He sort of brought himself back.
I can relate to that because 6 years ago, I had this hole in my soul. I didn't know why. I didn't know. I was trying to, fill it with, alcohol and things like that. You see all these alcohol bottles behind me, but I haven't drank. Matter of fact, June 17th this month, it's going to be my 6-year anniversary. And
congratulations.
Yeah, and so I'm a proud, I'm a proud alcoholic. I'm a grateful alcoholic today because, like Napoleon Hill, I had no God. I knew who God was, but I had no God prior to these last 6 years. And one of the things I've been doing is reaching out through meditation and prayer. And that has allowed me to develop that connection. And over the last 6 years, I can tell you, that has just been an invaluable, priceless gift that I've received. And I want to continue to evolve that connection because, wow, in the last 6 years, I just can't imagine it getting any better. It just keeps, I look back at the mosaic and it just keeps getting, it might not be what I thought it would be, but it just continues to get better and better and better. And between Think and Grow Rich, Laws of Success, and the Holy Bible, I think I got it dialed in, right? And people like you that I can follow your lead.
That between those three, that somebody once said, and I quote it frequently, when the Bible was finished and Shakespeare died, the rest of us have just been moving words around. And the point being, it's all in there. If you look deep enough, it's all in there or in those. And Dr. Hill was very good at extracting that and simplifying. He reminds me of Jim Rohn in a way. Jim Rohn has never said anything that I've read that I hadn't heard somewhere else from my father, maybe not word for word, from my father, my William Penpatrick, who was over him in NutriBio years before, Bill Bailey.
I wish it was easier. Wish you were better.
Yeah, I love that. Why did that happen? I don't know.
He's my absolute number one favorite speaker ever. Only because of his tonality and that country accent, just made me feel warm and fuzzy when he spoke, and I miss that.
Absolutely, me too. And that was sort of my point, was that Dr. Hill took proven things from the Bible. I don't mean he had the Bible in the right hand, the book in the left hand, was copying from it, but so much of it comes from the Bible, maybe because they got to the same conclusions for different reasons. I don't know. And Jim Rohn, he simplified it. Where a person like me, there's not so many thous and therefores and forsooths in Think and Grow Rich, so I can read it without having to stop every 10 seconds and go, what did that mean? Jim Rohn did that for this generation. Didn't say anything I hadn't heard elsewhere. Some of the stuff I know exactly where it came from. I knew them well. But he was America's poet. He took, with that beautiful voice of his and the intonation, he took complex subjects and reduced them to a point where us common folk could understand them. And Dr. Hill did that. People sometimes complain that Think and Grow Rich is a little cumbersome here and there. And I thought, well, think how cumbersome it could have been if he hadn't simplified it. This is, other than see Dick succeed, watch Jane run to the bank, it doesn't really get that much more simple.
I mean, I just think about, his principles, right? The principles to live by. I mean, like, thoughts are things, desire, faith, autosuggestion, specialized knowledge, imagination, all these things that, just go into, the principles of success. And so to me, it's just like, if you, that's why we're practitioners, right? We study him on a daily basis, and then we try to practice those principles in all our affairs. That's the idea. We're not, it's progress, not perfection. I like to say imperfection's perfection anyways, because there's only one that was ever perfect, and I'm certainly not him. So what an absolute pleasure. Let me see. Paul, I see a bunch of people on Facebook Live. Do you guys have any questions before we wrap this up with Mr. Ben Gay? Are you related to the Ben Gay? Is that like a...
Only when I want to get it.
Third, I was like, I wonder if he's related.
Only when I want to get a better seat in a restaurant in which I'm not known. Then I become Dr. Ben Gay, and I never claim anything, but I watch them assume. And once they've assumed, I get anything I want. To answer your question, no. Up until 1960, the product was named Bengue after the French doctor, Dr. Jean Bengue, who invented it. But my senior year in high school, two things happened that changed my life because of my name. Bengue, because they couldn't get Americans to say that, became Ben Gay, spelled my way. And gay ceased to mean just happy. That all happened my senior year in high school. So I used to get some kidding about my name, but not much, because it was only from those people who knew how to pronounce it right. And but now everybody knows how to pronounce it right. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm hard to forget.
Oh, absolutely. And you can Google yourself too, right? So, one of the things that stood out to me too was you said that, you were given a record and a book, the Earl Nightingale record. I've listened to that many times on audio, I think somewhere on YouTube or somewhere. Yeah. But and then the Think and Grow Rich book. And are you saying that you were given that prior or when you were 25 and then you went on to basically win the top prize and be made the president of a company based on the learning of Earl Nightingale's audio in the book?
Based on the sales training I got from Bill Dempsey and gang, and finally listening to them, and based on the philosophies and psychology and Think and Grow Rich and The Strangest Secret. Absolutely. Remove any two of those, and you and I would not be talking today.
I have one question that just came up. Why has the Think and Grow Rich book been so impactful for you?
Well, it's good stuff. One, it really is good stuff.
It works. That's why.
Yeah. And then there are those people. I was walking through with Dr. Hill, walking through my living room one day in the house in Marin. And my wife had laid out a copy of Think and Grow Rich on the coffee table. It's the first time he ever stayed with us. And I looked down, saw it, and I thought, well, that's a little tacky, but I know she's trying to help, because we didn't keep a copy of Think and Grow Rich on the living room coffee table. And I said, Dr. Hill, look, oh my, look, a copy of Think and Grow Rich. And he said, well, thank you. I think he knew what had happened also. And I said, how does it feel to have written one of the best, they used to say it was second only to the Bible. I don't know if that was true then or now, but that was the catchphrase. To have written one of the best-selling books in history. And he said, Benjamin, best-selling, least read. Wow. So a lot of people who benefit from Think and Grow Rich benefit by getting around positive people who've actually read it, and they sort of by assimilation pick up a buzzword, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe. They pick up a buzzword here or there or what have you. Let me show you something. About 2 years ago, a dear friend of mine who used to run one of my businesses, Sandra Nomer, came up to me at a class reunion for Gigi's class. I didn't go to school in this area. But she said, I found this at a garage sale and I knew you would want it. And she handed me a copy of Think and Grow Rich. This particular copy is 75 years old.
No coincidence.
Yeah, close. So I looked and I said, thank you. And I went to open it like you do with a book, and it became painfully evident, I'm not going to do it now, it had never been cracked,
Wow. Awesome.
except the cover had been peeled back or folded back so that Dr. Hill could sign it to Mrs. Grace Dixon with best wishes. Unfortunately, it's not dated, but the book's 75 years old, so that's
Wow.
probably roughly it. Now, look at this. Red on the front, red on the back, bleached out on the spine. I've sold, I'm guessing 10, 11 million copies of my books, 10 million of Closers Part 1 when we quit counting 20 years ago. So I sort of know the book game and the signing game and so on. Mrs. Grace Dixon, I assure you, went to a book signing or a speech or something that Dr. Hill did. And she got in line to buy the book. I know the drill. And then she got in line to meet Dr. Hill and have him sign it. And he did. And then she took it home and stuck it in a bookcase for 75 years and never opened it or read it. And I'm confident if I'd ever had the opportunity to meet Mrs. Grace Dixon, she would have said, oh, Napoleon Hill, I love him. Think and Grow Rich. I have a signed copy, you know. And I probably wasn't smart enough at the time, but today I would say, did you read it? As you know,
Two more questions for you, and I'll let you go because I know we've been on this quite some time. So this is interesting because I didn't know this. Have you ever met Napoleon Hill's son that was born without his ears, or was
no?
No,
I never met any of his family. I went back to South Carolina to meet with him several times, but we always met in my hotel room or whatever. I never went to his house. He wasn't standoffish about it. I personally don't want to go to people's houses. I like to be in the hotel where I have everything I need and the restaurant and the bar downstairs, you know. So I had no burning. I never went to Earl Nightingale's home, and we were friends till he died.
That's
and
so cool.
He only came to mind because I insisted he come to mind.
Wow. So I didn't know that there was a gentleman named Ben Gay that was the last protege of Napoleon Hill, because the only other person that I would even say came close to what you just talked about today that just lives the principles and is Bob Proctor.
Bob worked for me. He was a Holiday Magic distributor, and he never met Dr. Hill. It doesn't claim to have met him. He's just a student of his works. So that's the only thing unusual I bring to the table. Of the living, there were obviously others when he was alive, but of the living, to my knowledge, I'm the last one who knew him and worked for him. Don Green, the head of Think and Grow Rich Foundation, or the Napoleon Hill Foundation, whatever it is, never met him. He'd been dead 20 years when he got the job. So there are a lot of people who have read the book and memorized it. My partner, Mark Harris, in The Last Protege, is a far better student of the works, the technical works of Dr. Hill than I am. In fact, I kid and I say, if Dr. Hill was at his normal seat to my left at my conference table, and Mark Harris was to my right, and we had a trivia contest on Think and Grow Rich or the Law of Success, Mark Harris would win. He knows the material better than anyone on the planet, including Dr. Hill. There's a tendency, you probably know, you write something and you sort of forget it. You know, people are always saying to me, oh, Mr. Gay, on page 112 in the Closers Part 2, what did you mean? You know, well, I don't know. Tell me what's on page 112. I wrote it and marched on. So
That's so cool. So not only did Zig Ziglar work for you, but Bob Proctor worked for you. And who was the other gentleman? Was it
Dr. Napoleon Hill?
Oh, Napoleon Hill. I'm like, holy cow! How's that?
Augmented.
So
here's why.
I have some good news for you.
Huh?
So you know I own a network marketing company called Wine Ambassador, right? You know I own a network marketing company.
Yeah.
A person with your skill sets, sir, would be perfect for our business.
I was president of the largest MLM direct sales company in the world at the time. We were bigger than Amway and Shackley combined. We were taking in $1 million a day in 1967,
Nice.
68. So I've been head of one. Here's the bad news. I'm pulling for you. I've recommended your business to other people. If I'm ever in an MLM company again, I will own it, lock, stock, and barrel.
Hey, well, it's all, I got some equity available.
Okay.
I got a seat on the board for you, my friend.
Well,
That's
that
for
we can
sure. I definitely
that
have
we can
that
talk
for you.
about.
I
That we
definitely
can
have.
talk about. I would love to work with you.
Excellent. Well, listen, I can't tell you what a pleasure it's been, Ben, to like just sit down and kind of like just talk coffee talk with you. I want to break bread with you. I don't know what we need to do, but I want to break bread. Maybe I'll fly you out to our event, our national convention, have you out on stage, just kind of, give some Napoleon Hill tips to my reps and customers, and you go from there. But man, I feel blessed. Thank you so much.
The feeling is mutual, Brett. Thank you very much for having me.
Excellent. Have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. Bye for now.
Bye.